So, live action anime adaptations, they suck, right? There's so much that doesn't translate well from animation to live action, such as their overly emotional scenes, the very large breast on the female characters, and the main character's insatiable hunger. Now, of course, that hasn't stopped Hollywood from trying to crack the codes to make this Japanese media come to the live action form. Now, there's one specific company that keeps trying to take a crack at it. They're a small company, you may have heard of them. They're called Netflix. And of course, if you're looking at the video title, then you know that the most recent victim of their live action animation of anime-ism is One Piece, one of the most popular and best-selling anime and mangas of all time. What's up guys, Okan here, back at it with another video. Now, this week we're going to be reviewing the live action Netflix adaptation of One Piece. Oh boy. Seriously though, this is my full review and I don't want to waste too much time just dilly-dallying or talking about a bunch of nonsense. So let's just jump right in to what the show is about. So One Piece is a show about a man named Monkey D. Luffy who is on a journey to find a legendary treasure called the One Piece and become the king of the pirates. But he's not alone on his journey. He has this trusty crew that follows him into the fire and flames. So I'm going to give you guys a little backstory before I get into the review. I know I said I don't want to waste any time, but I'm going to do that anyway. I'm a liar. What are you going to do about it? Anyway, the backstory is that I have been keeping up with One Piece in one form or another since I was in middle school. Now, I have a group of friends who all watch One Piece pretty religiously. But yeah, it's always been like a pretty big and monumental thing in my life in terms of media. And I still read the manga and I still watch the anime till this day. So this adaptation was kind of something that made me nervous before I even saw it. I saw the previews and things like that and I was like, this looks terrible. I'm not gonna like this at all. But did this Netflix adaptation do justice to the wonderful and masterful masterpiece that Eiichiro Oda created? Sort of. Alright, so initial thoughts of the show. So I liked it. I'm not going to sit here and say that I was disappointed because it didn't disappoint for the most part. I say most part because there was a lot of things that they did that strayed away from the source material, whether that be the manga or the anime. And there's a lot of things that they did that were true to the source material. And that's kind of where my first problem lies, that they were true to the source material. I don't know how else to describe it, but there was some issues with just how accurate a lot of things were for me. And let me break down what I mean. See, anime is a bit of a special medium. You get to draw characters with outrageous facial expressions and create characters that say and do things in an outrageous fashion, which is something that Luffy, the main character, does a lot. He screams things at the top of his lungs, he says the name of his attacks out loud before actually attacking, and many more things. Stuff like that just doesn't really work in live action for me personally. Like every time Luffy would say Gum Gum Pistol, it would kind of be cringy to me because it's just not sticking in the way that I think that they meant for it to stick. For me personally, at least. I know my friends rated this show higher than I would have personally, but this is my review, so what they say doesn't matter. Sorry. And I know it was necessary to include those things, but at the end of the day, that's why I feel like sometimes these adaptations don't even need to happen because it just doesn't translate too well. But for the most part, I think it was okay. So I can't complain too much about it. All that being said, it didn't completely take me out of the experience because there were some things that they did that did bring a smile to my face, such as like whenever the crew would be on the Going Merry, and then whenever certain of the Straw Hats would have interactions with one another, I would turn into that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's pointing at the TV screen. Like whenever they would do something, I'd be like, oh shit, I know exactly what's going to happen before it happened, because it was just like, I just had that internal knowledge, and it was cool to see it play out that way. So speaking of the Straw Hats, I do want to get into casting a little bit, so let's go. So let's start with the obvious choice, the main character, the main man himself, Mr. Monkey D. Luffy. Now he was portrayed by Iñaki Godoy, and I think Iñaki did a pretty great job overall portraying Luffy. He did everything that Luffy would do. He was stubborn, didn't listen to others, and was oblivious half the time, but was also caring, kind, and a good leader. And I love that nowadays Netflix gets actors without a lot of roles under their belt to play these types of iconic roles. Like, imagine if Tom Holland played Luffy. Like, no. That would just be me doing the Leonardo thing again and yelling Spidey at the screen. Now, Nami was played by Emily Rudd, another actor I was unfamiliar with. And let's just get this out of the way now. I was pretty unfamiliar with everybody, truthfully, so yeah. Zoro was played by McKenyu. Jacob Romero played Usopp. Taz Skylar played Sanji. And I think there was a lot of good back and forth between the characters, like the Straw Hats, I mean. And I did mention this earlier, but, you know, the way that Sanji would flirt with Nami when he first met her, and you know how he would have subtle flirting throughout the show, and how Sanji and Zoro would kind of fight back and forth with one another. And I do love that Sanji called Zoro Mosshead, which was perfect because that's kind of his thing to say. But speaking of Sanji specifically, I was interested to see how they would address his character, because you know Sanji is something of a creep when it comes to women, and so that plays better in anime because it's animated and it's not a real person, so you don't look at them kind of too weirdly, and it's just kind of like a natural thing that happens in anime. So seeing that in live action, the way that they toned it down and they made him still a womanizer in a way, but not to the point where he was just being like super weird about it and having nosebleeds, I like that. I was a big fan of that, so shout out to them for that. The crew was all cast pretty spot on in my opinion, and I did think that McKenyu's Zoro line delivery was the only thing that felt bland at times, but other than that, everything worked for me. There were plenty of other iconic One Piece characters present here too, though. You know, you had Shanks, you had Dracule, Mihawk, you had Garp, you had Buggy, and last but not least, because he got a bigger and truthfully better role in my opinion, Kobe. Everyone looked the part, as ridiculous as the part would be at times, but I think it fit the world that they were trying to create. One Piece has always been a ridiculous, over-the-top world, so just naturally adapting that to live action is something that has to be done. So I don't think I can be too mad about it. You can't be mad at that, so yeah. Okay, now let's talk about design, because boy, this show was expensive. At a whopping $18 million per episode, this show stood at being more expensive than Game of Thrones itself, which each episode was about $15 million per episode, which is wild. Netflix is wild for that, but I see that they did a lot of practical things with this show, such as building actual boats and ships, and like the Baratie, fuck, why am I blanking? The ship that Sanji worked on, the damn restaurant, god damn it, that was practical on the ocean, just like that. And it's insane to think that they could actually make all these types of things, but they got the money for it, so they did it. And I think that was pretty cool. You know, these ships were real, they were really cruising on the ocean. Some of the stunts were real, like, yeah, let's get into the stunts a little bit, the action. As a whole, I think the action was pretty okay. Sanji's actor, Taz, he did his own stunts, from what I understand, which is really cool, and they looked awesome. Sanji is a character that only uses his feet because he's a chef, and the chef doesn't want to get his hands, you know, dirty or messed up in any way. But he only uses his feet for attacks, so he kicks a lot. They did that really well. Zoro, swordplay was pretty good as well. I think the way that they portrayed Zoro's abilities and the fact that his 3-sword style came across pretty nicely in the show. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. I think, you know, Usopp, he has a slingshot. You can't really fuck up a slingshot. Like he did the exploding star attack, which was really cool. Nami has her staff, and she was whooping ass with it. A lot more proficient with it in the show than I would say in the anime. But Luffy, the main man, his attacks were kind of lackluster for me. Like the way that they came across, because, you know, they were stretchy attacks, alright, but they just didn't feel as good as everything else. And that's obviously because they weren't practical. They had to put a little visual effects on that, it's a little CGI to make it look cool. Because, you know, when he does, like, for example, the Gum Gum Gatling gun, you know, that, for those who may not know, that's when he punches and it's like 500 hands on screen at once. 500 of his arms, because he's punching super fast, and it's like he's made out of rubber, so it's just elastic and it's just back and forth. I know I look dumb doing this, but I'm trying to give you a visual. But that just looked kind of silly. You know, Gum Gum Pistol, that was fine. Gum Gum Bell, where he's like threw his head back and like whiplash smacked Kuro in the face. That's another thing. Kuro looked ridiculous. Like, with the long freaking blades on his hands, I was not feeling it. But that's another story. As a whole, action was good, but Luffy's action was probably the worst overall. But I digress. So Netflix is notorious for action shows after one season if they don't perform to their liking. And, you know, we saw it happen with Cowboy Bebop, another anime turned a live action adaptation. And while I can't speak to the quality of Cowboy Bebop because I never got a chance to watch it, it makes me wonder how One Piece will fare in regards to that. Because from my understanding, it did perform pretty well its first weekend, and it's obviously gotten pretty good audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's not the telltale sign. It's just how much money the show brings back in terms of streaming overall. So we gotta wait and see on that. But I feel like, in terms of quality, the show is not bad. For someone who's not a fan of One Piece, I feel like a lot of the stuff that happens in the show may seem silly, but as someone that is a fan, or somebody that is a fan besides myself, I think this is a pretty good representation of what the show is and what it can be. This is something of a mixed bag of a show, but overall, it's a pretty solid representation of what One Piece is, which is a crazy, kooky show about pirates with superpowers, essentially. So I'm curious to see what they would do with season 2. You know, there's characters like Chopper, Jinbei, Frankie, Brook, who are all not just regular humans. So bringing those guys in would be kind of interesting to see. And I would like to see how far they could even take this show. You know, would we ever get a Gear 5? I doubt it, but it would be interesting to see. So I just want to see what they can do with the show. I was a fan of it for the most part, and as much as I didn't want to like it, I did. And that might just be me being a hater, but I enjoyed the show a lot. So take that as you will. But I think I'm going to end the video here, guys. I appreciate you for watching. I did this video a little differently than my usuals. It kind of moved around a lot. Let me know if you like the style better than my usual videos or not. But yeah, if you did enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And also, I have more videos coming out soon. And again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate y'all's support as always. But finally, if you did like this video, once again, like, subscribe. Stay tuned to see what type of content I take on next time. Later. Bye.